And we're rolling. Welcome to AOD Fitness Podcast, where we discuss all things health and fitness. I'm Kyle. With me today is Harry, and we're going to be talking about how to be more efficient in the gym. So, the last podcast, we put a couple of stories out on Instagram to see what you guys wanted to talk about. This is one of the topics that come up. And as Harry has said before, he done a massive, a lecture?
Yeah, and they killed lecture.
Yes. So he's on. He's going to hopefully bring some of that knowledge to the table today. So let's get into it then. So why is being efficient important in the gym?
I mean, if you look at CrossFit from a very, very broad standpoint, what we define as work capacity across broad time and mode of domains, right? So you have your training session. It's a certain volume of work, and the quicker you get that done effectively, obviously with a reason to try and preserve stimulus, the better your work capacity is, because you're doing a extra amount of work in a short amount of time. So firstly, there is the wider kind of overarching theme that if you are more effective in your training, if you get more done in less time, you do have more work capacity, but you'll also be working towards having more. You'll also find that athletes that are fitter will recover quicker and get their sessions done quicker, or they have time to do more work within their sessions. So I think having that in the back of your mind is so important to think like, I'm going to try and be as effective as I can here, make the most out of my time, because that's going to lead to me having the best gains long term, but also it's going to allow me one day to be able to do more volume in this same amount of time that I've been allowed, ultimately leading to better results, right? And you watch these videos on YouTube, right, of like Rich Froning or like the hard work pays off guys is one that I've seen recently, and they're just doing back-to-back hard metcons, and they're not setting the standard for everyday athletes to go and try and do that, because the recovery isn't there, but it's showing you how well they recover and how effectively they can train, right? And that's what you want to try and work towards. It's not cramming a load of metcons into one session, but it's being fit enough to be able to do that in the long run when you're kind of looking at your aspirations, I suppose.
Yeah, so you mean like not just adding more volume or more time to your session?
Exactly right. Cranking your training up a gear doesn't necessarily mean training like the time restraints, the time constraints of it, need to be more.
Yeah.
It's going to be like, I need to work harder, I need to get more done in less time. Now, like I was just saying, there's within reason and preserving the stimulus of what you're doing. Obviously, if you're doing strength work, you need to have the adequate rest. If you're doing intervals that are trying to hit a particular intensity or energy system, there's going to be adequate rest involved. Some lower intensity pieces might take longer, and it's just about accumulating time there. So there is some kind of restraints to this, because you need to hit the training and how the protocols are built, but you can definitely condense things in a much better way. And I guess we'll get into some more business comes to do that.
Exactly that. So in that, on the back of that question, what can the athletes actually do with tools or strategies when they come into the gym to maximize their time?
I think the biggest thing, given like with people that are maybe time pressured or they're not training effectively enough, is going to be distractions, potentially socializing as well. I know a lot of us come to the gym to socialize, but you need to kind of take that into account and like make time for it, but don't waste time for it, kind of thing. So my suggestion as an effective tool would be, most of us get our programs via our phones, whether that's on Google Sheets or an app or something like that. I would write my session down on a whiteboard or in your notepads. I would look at the session. I would write my intentions for each of the workouts, each of the pieces I'm going to do. That way we can preserve the intensity without moving too quick, preserve the stimulus, should I say. Then I just put my phone away.
Yeah.
I've actually had times where it's something I do fairly frequently now. It's a bit rash, but I'll just like delete Instagram, or I'll put my phone in airplane mode or something like that, because I can feel myself not feeling super productive within that session. I'm not massively motivated on that day, because we're not always motivated every day. We've got to turn up and do it though. So I try to manipulate my circumstances, my surroundings, so that I can be more effective in that way.
Yeah.
So first one, is plan the session. Try and manipulate the circumstances so that you don't go on your phone loads, and then also you're going to avoid that socializing by, I'm starting this piece, so I'm starting this stroke piece. I'm not going to talk between sets. Yeah. Maybe I've got headphones in or something like that. Once I finish that, I'll allow myself 5-10 minutes to talk to someone about something, Depends on what the times we're working on are, but it's the people talking while they're doing things is quite, irritates me quite a lot, really. Yeah.
I suppose, like you said, when they come to the gym, it's part of being social. But like you said, the headphones, I sort of tell people to use the headphones as the tool of that. So when your friends come in the gym, they see you got your headphones in, it's not time to approach them.
Yeah.
And when they take their headphones out, that's when the conversations are. Yeah. And we do it at our gym down in Canterbury. We sort of say, like, that's our thing. If the headphones are in, you're not going to come and approach me.
Yeah.
So you sort of tell people that, and it's like a rule.
Yeah.
I feel like, and then you do the same. They go over and just be like,
I think that
just to get the phone.
Yeah. I think that headphones are actually a really invaluable tool. Like, every athlete needs a decent functioning pair of like wireless headphones. The same as we will have a heart rate monitor or something like that, right? Or we'll have a like a Garmin or something like that. I think it's totally on parallel with that because of how you can utilize it. Obviously, it helps. Like, there's obviously a lot of research into using music to help you train, but also, like, helping you focus yourself, channel yourself, be a lot more present in the moment of that training piece you're doing, as opposed to having all these external distractions. So no, that is a really good one. So like planning the session, manipulating the circumstances are definitely going to be big ones.
Yeah. I would say on the planning session as well, like, you could even go down the route of the night before. Like, if you know you're going into the gym early morning or something like that, it could be a simple like notebook out night for plan your session. Yeah, you've gained 10 minutes there as well.
Yeah. I've had the pleasure of working a more of a corporate, I guess, kind of lifestyle, and getting up at 5 a.m, going to the gym, being very poor on time, like having short time, and that planning process and the intentions would go in the night before. Yeah. Because like we were just talking about, I haven't had any coffee and I'm like a bit dazed. Yeah. So it's and also you don't feel as up for it before you start warming up and all that kind of stuff. So it's like you need to definitely set those intentions the night before and then hold yourself accountable with them to the next day. And that's where the difference comes though. That's where the discipline kind of comes in, isn't it? The people that are going to actually follow up on what they said they were going to do. Yeah. And the ones that, 100% let themselves off. Yeah. I think another huge thing, so that's kind of manipulating your circumstances, planning, all those kind of things. Another one is going to be recovery during your session. Now, there's multiple ways that you can improve your recovery, and I'm not talking about recovering day to day in terms of like trying to create better adaptations. I'm talking about recovering training piece to training piece to preserve the quality, but also like maintain an effective session, maintain a good tempo through the session. And some of the really basic things I would see, or I could suggest, is one is doing a cool down between training pieces. So that's probably just going to be jumping on the bike erg, spinning on it at 50 watts, You can go on your phone then, we talk to your mates where you're doing that, you're dripping with sweat, you're spinning at 50 watts, like really, really easy, 5-10 minutes. One of the things that's going to help you do is there's going to be your blood sugar is going to be elevated, right? Because all the glycogen in your muscles has been drawn out. It's now rushing around your blood system, delivering it wherever it needs to be. And it's going to help you basically go from this high stress state where your insulin's high, your blood sugar's high, to kind of trying to effectively like recapture the glycogen into the cell and return to homeostasis, which is like an effectively recovered state. Whereas if you don't ramp yourself down, you're prolonging the amount of time that you're staying potentially like stress. Yeah. You're riding this higher line. So then say you have 20 minutes, 10 minutes between workouts, you got a workout, 10-minute cool down, so you bring yourself back down, you then go back up for the next one. If you just stay up, the amount of stress you're actually accumulating in that session is much higher than it needs to be, because it's not worthwhile stress. There's no reason to stay in that sympathetic state after that workout. Let's recover. Then the next thing that comes in is nutrition. Just like we were talking about, glycogen, carbohydrates, that is going to help you get your cortisol levels down, get into more of like push you back into homeostasis, recover better, but also it's going to fuel you for the next piece as well, rather than you feeling like you're going to be hanging out. And
quite up intro carbs, you're thinking?
Inch carbohydrates, using maltodextrin or just things that are high in sugar. High glycemic carbs, yeah. What it's been likened to before, so if you take like a 2.5 hour, 2 hour, 90-minute CrossFit session where there's multiple bouts of high intensity, it could be likened to endurance sport.
Yeah.
And in endurance sport, they're looking at like 50 to 100 grams of carbs every hour, right? And they obviously calculate that differently based off of the athlete, what their muscle fiber type composition is, like lots of different factors go into that. But as a general rule of thumb, it's like, if the endurance athletes are doing it to preserve the quality of their long sessions, why aren't we? Because quite often, if you take a cyclist going out on a long ride, they're going to work a lot of hard intervals into what is a long session with effectively periods of cooling down, low intensity between, which is kind of what we're going to do if we're deploying a reasonable recovery protocol between pieces. So cooling down is quite a big one, and obviously adding the kind of like nutrition element to that as well.
Cool. All right, and so that's what, if we're looking from a time aspects now, let's say people are short on time or don't have a lot of time in the gym. So what we just covered there is how to really make your session effective with the workouts you're going to do, or whatever. If we look at it from, let's just say, some athletes like, right, I'm short on time today. I still want to make this session as good as well as I can. But what's the priorities within that session? For example, choosing the parts of the session that you need to work on more, and helping the stuff like the weakness work, the limitation work, etc. So
that is priority is key. This is where prep coach is quite important. Yeah, but also you do need to, so the priorities are obviously key. But then if your priority is always the same thing, that other areas get neglected, it's got to be a balance, right? It has to be a little bit of a balance, yeah. So I'm trying to think of the best way to put this, but it's obvious that you do the things that you need to prioritize first, especially if you find them difficult. Yeah. But then also, like, there's elements of your warm-up that you could start to use to make things more time effective. So it's like, have those things you prioritize first, but then be disciplined with that priority, in the sense you're like, this is the training piece, I'm going to do this and move on. If you get emotional because it's not going well, you need to be pragmatic and find a way to get something out of it without either blowing up and not doing it, or just doing it over and over and over again until your knuckles are bleeding or whatever, right? Because I'm sure we've felt that, but also found that with athletes before as well, right? If it's a high skill movement that they struggle with, sometimes out of pure frustration and grit, they'll just keep doing it, and then all of a sudden they've wasted an extra 25-50% of their solutions, right? Yeah, doing the thing.
To the pace.
So I think prioritizing stuff is very important. Do that first while you've got the most mental and physical energy, but you've got to be very direct with it. And if you're giving it quality and then you move on, and that's going to be much better than in that moment just hammering, even if it's not going that well. And that's kind of what we get caught up on. But that's what leads to plateaus. That's what leads to, it depends what you're doing, but that's what leads to overuse injuries like that. So yeah, that would be my main thing about prioritizing stuff. Yeah.
I would also put in there, say like, it's a little bit of maybe a hack, but if you're looking at your 90-minute session and you've got an hour, then, like Harry said, sitting on a bike recovering, what you could actually be doing is actually putting the equipment away and getting the next equipment out for the next piece. Yeah. So using that time, sort of like a cool down piece, you're just moving them out.
Yeah.
I was just tidying up and getting the next thing out ready. So you've had that, you minimise the time, and then you probably get the whole session in.
Yeah,
and probably fine.
a really good one, which is almost the same thing as that, is, like in rest periods, kind of setting the next thing up, or setting it up in part, because obviously you don't want to be thinking about it too much, because you're doing a job and you've got to be focused on your recovery. But like, if there's some things you could do to move towards doing that, and that's all stuff that you should work into when you're planning that session and the intentions. You're like, okay, I recognize an opportunity here for me to be proactive and start to set up this next piece, or I can use this same equipment here, or maybe I'll change this one movement. And it'll make it, because if you're working in a really busy gym in like a peak time, it's like, maybe I'll just adjust this one movement rather than having to wait for that person to do this. And that's all about learning, right? Yeah. Obviously using your coaches for that as well is quite important. Because that's it. I've found through being injured, but it's similar with equipment availability. You can quite often adjust workouts to get exactly what your coach intended. Yeah. Even if you've adjusted it a little bit. But you have to obviously understand what they're trying to get after. So that's where the relationship's important. So like, say it was a workout focusing on a particular gymnastics move, but because of your injury or the equipment that's available, you've only got access to X, Y, Z, so you can't do what's written. You change one thing, you still hit that gymnastics movement as intended. Coach is happy, you're happy, you get all one done. Yeah, so no, you're definitely right, and that's all part of that planning, right? Being proactive. Make it easy for yourself. Make your life easier for yourself.
And we sort of touched on this a minute ago when you said about maybe a session on going by, sort of how would you advise the athletes to navigate through a bad session that's limited on time? Like they're just in the gym and people talking, there's things like that, and then all of a sudden, they feel like their session's gone bad to work.
It's a really hard one, because the emotions from one thing carry over into the next. So you spend too long missing snatches at 60%, right? With a probably severe exaggeration. You spend too long doing that. You've missed a load, so you beat yourself up a little bit. You're emotional. But the next thing is something that's low skill. It's just about effort, right? But you're letting the emotions of that and the fact that you're now time restricted because you spent too long doing it carry over. So this is where being very objective and a bit more of like an emotionless robot is a strength for someone. Obviously, there's strengths and weaknesses to either side of the emotion spectrum, but that's how you got to kind of look at it. Is this hasn't gone very well today. I need to try and understand why, so then we can get control over that. And then I'm gonna work on that with my coach, or we're gonna work on that in the future. This next thing is the next thing. And having those emotions linger is one of the worst things you could do to yourself, because you've ruined that practice of that thing that upset you in the first place. You're about to ruin the practice of what you're about to do. And it does depend on the athlete a little bit, like how you can talk to them. Athletes that I'm very close to, I'm often a little bit harder on, but I'm just kind of like, look, you don't have the time to afford to be upset by now when you've got so many other things to do. That thing that just didn't go well, you might do your entire season and you don't even get tested on it. So stop worrying so much. And it's like, let's take a very analytical view of why we think this isn't going well. What is it? What happened this session? What's led into this session? And then we can use those to control the situation, and we don't need to be so emotional about it. To work on it,
It's almost assessing after, isn't it? About
it is gone. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Session.
And I think, like I said, it's a very fine balance. Too emotional, you ruin your session. Too analytical, you use it as a crutch and you give up too easy. So it's about striking that balance, recognizing where you are in that spectrum of things. Whether you're super emotional or a bit more kind of like analytical, you can put it away really easy, and trying to create a bit more balance for yourself so that you don't give up too easy and be like, oh, we need to do this to fix this. Like, maybe just try harder. Or don't be too emotional and be like, I'm never going to be able to do this. Like, I'm so overwhelmed. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. All right. And so just a last point that we sort of want to cover, and I think this will be for most people, is an effective warm-up to start a session.
Yeah.
So really, I want to sort of try and get, like, what would be maybe, and really, like, I know, simplify it here so people can just go, that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
Like, how can, because I feel like some people are in warming up for 30 minutes,
Yeah.
20 minutes. I'm really, if I'm honest, I'm probably doing 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And my part of my warm up is actually mental state. Is like, right, I'm training now, and that also heightens my
I like that. Yeah.
my heart rate. I feel my heart rate getting up.
Yeah, yeah.
Blood pumping more, and I use that more than
So
doing.
yeah, so that is a you asked for a finisher remark, so you just open an app.
Yeah, I know that, and it was going to.
So there's the warm up on paper,
Yeah.
and we can get to that, and that's very simple. Like, we can just talk about the protocol there. But the prep, so big, right? See this so much with probably a bit more inexperienced younger athletes, not necessarily dependent on their level either, just generally less experience. The distractions come in, but they rock up to the gym, chat to this person a bit, chat to that one a bit,
Copy what they're doing, and then warm up.
yeah, and they're like, right, so what have I got to them? First thing, okay, they're flat as a fucking pancake, you know, like they're not there emotionally.
Yeah.
Like you said, you've got this thing, so you need to have a process. There's a thing you do every time, a mental cue that triggers you. Yeah, it triggers you. It starts the process, and even though it's a habit or it's a mentality, your physiology will follow it. It's the same. But I've cultivated this over time for myself.
Yeah.
But I've only realised it. It's not intentional, but I've only realised it like in the last year or whatever, right? But so for me personally, often I'll walk to the gym. When I'm going to train, I'll walk to the gym. I'm going to have some kind of pre-workout. So whether that's just like a coffee or something, I'm like taking on supplements to prepare my body for the session. I just stop talking to people.
Yeah.
Not intentional. Like, but
You're within thoughts.
that's it. Yeah. I'm just in there. I'm thinking about what I've got to do. Like, there's no doubt you've got hard things coming up. And to be honest, it's not at the cost of my relationships, but like people do get it, and they're like, okay, he's training. Like, don't talk to him. If you talk to me, I'm not going to bite you, but it's because I've started this process, right? And if you do catch me joking around, it's either before or after the session, or I've lost my way somewhere along the thing. I'm fucking distracted mid-session, like I said, you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So no, having that process is definitely so important. And everyone's totally different.
Yeah, exactly that. It wouldn't be totally different.
Everyone's totally different, and I think you don't need to have. There's no one way to do it, but there needs to be a way to do it. And I think for me, it has always kind of been walk into the gym with a coffee, headphones in, and that's always kind of been what it's been like for my entire training life before I did CrossFit. It's only been recently I've been like, oh, that's actually like what I do. That's actually like a mental track. Yeah. And I've never ever been chatty when I train. I just kind of do it, and that's what I enjoy to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of prep, so more like pre-warm up, I think that's massively important. Mentally, you got to get yourself there. And then in terms of like the actual physiology of it, trying to warm up your body, I mean, it's one of the first things you learn if you do like a strength conditioning or a PT course, right? It's like, it's so basic.
Yeah.
And it's just like a ramp. It's just like a rap protocol. So, being raise, activate, mobilize, potentiate.
Yeah.
Activate and mobilize are interchangeable. I think it's just that way round because it spells the words.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like more as a rap. So raise, you're just looking at raising your temperature, right? Yeah. Raising your core temperature, raising your heart rate, just basically improving circulation, oxygenization of the muscles, all of those kind of things. Their activation, mobilization, like I said, the two are interchangeable, but you're basically preparing your muscles and your joints
for the task ahead.
Yeah, for the task ahead. So for the loads, the ranges they might need to go through, all that kind of stuff.
Specific.
And then potentiation is basically what workout are you about to do, what thing are you about to do, and you are kind of exposing yourself to a small dose of that so that you don't get shocked by the thing you're going to do. So if we compare to strap training, you do 5 sets of 5 at 80%, it's quite tough. First set's going to be the hardest. Yeah. Because you haven't potentiated as well as you could have, right? Like actually, if you really want to be really pedantic about it, people don't really ask this normally. Load up to 85%, do a double, and then your first set's going to feel like sweet as, right? So yeah, practical application, jump on a bit of cardio kit. I would say 5 to 10 minutes. If you wanted to get some lift cardio in at the same time, that's time effective. Bump it up to 20, 30 minutes. Depends how much time you got, isn't it? Then activate mobilization. You can hit a go wad. Then try and isolate the joint specifically you're going to work on, but actually like using the muscles. Then potentiate, do the movements, dose yourself with the thing you're about to do, but not a whole round, just so you're not hit like shock when you first start. Because a lot of athletes, same thing, right? There's different types of athletes, but some might feel like the first bit of their strength work is so heavy, and then it gets better because they haven't potentiated well enough. Athletes that maybe struggle with their energy systems a little bit more, they blow up in their first round, and then they're just swimming in shit for the rest of it. But it's like, you needed to potentiate and warm yourself up better for that. That was such a big thing for me. I'm limited in my endurance, in my energy systems more. And whereas when I lift, I can just bam, 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 bam. Yeah, just pop the weights on, it's fine. But yeah, I started warming up more gradually, bit of a long warm up, few hard efforts above whatever my interval we were at or whatever. And then the quality of my sessions was just so much better from that. So yeah, that's practical application. There you go, warming up.
Cool. And then what I would say then, if you are limited by time, I would try and make it into something a little bit more condensed, like a 10-minute AMRAP or something. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes. Well, you can get a lot of those in cows. You can get a lot of those things in an email.
Exactly, right? And
you can blend it.
You can blend it. That's what I...
And what I would do is raise, activate, mobilize together and leave the potentiation out. And then when you move on to that first piece, that's when you do that. So yeah, that works really well. I remember it's years and years ago now, but when I followed Mayhem years ago, that's basically what they did. And it looks like someone's just chucked a shitty workout in there. And I just did it for a bit because I didn't have anything specific for myself. And I was like, this is a decent way to warm up. Yeah, but as long as you keep your intensity though, treat that like it's a mecca. So yeah.
All right, cool. Let's just finish up then. So what could our listeners take away from this session today, this podcast?
Yes. Just a few answers. So more than anything, more than the practical tools that we've given you, being time effective is very much a mentality. And it's discipline, and it changes on different days. You have different levels. And when your discipline, your motivation is low, that is when you deploy the tools, i.e. session on the whiteboard, phone goes away, headphones in. What are some other ones we spoke about? I don't know. In between like recovery pieces and stuff like that. Like having a productive warm up planned. Like when you're motivated and you're disciplined and you're really dialed in on that day, because we all fluctuate with those things, it's going to be easy to hammy a session, right? So it's having all those tools that we've just spent all that time talking about ready to deploy should you need them. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest thing is going to be just planning for that.
And also, I suppose from just finish like that. If it is time restraint that you often find, then you're more than likely maybe going to know the night before how long you can be in the gym, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to plan that session towards that and making them priorities, like we said. Reducing sets as well. It could be something like that, not doing so many sets of one thing or the other. There's multiple tools within that program, and that you can condense in a little bit more. So yeah. Happy?
Yeah, very happy.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. And thanks for Harry for coming on today. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.